A very good morning to you and welcome back to K24 this morning. My name is Mungala Mubi and it's money and finance. This being a Tuesday, let's talk about money. Today we want to focus a lot on the recovery of the economy, and it has been said over and over again that manufacturing needs to be revamped. Manufacturing is the core business that will probably take us out of the limbo that we are in and probably take us to a better place. And our question of the day today, this is it. Does Kenya meet the minimum quality standards to drive a sustainable manufacturing industry? Does Kenya meet the minimum quality standards to drive a sustainable manufacturing industry? That's for you as the audience. Kindly let us know what you think on Facebook, Twitter, at K24TV, across all platforms, and of course, the lines to call are on your screen. We won't mind you sending that WhatsApp question as well, so that we can get interactive. And allow me to introduce my panel for today. We do have Abraham Muthogo, an economist. It's been a while since I saw you here.
I'm here now.
Ulihama Kenya?
Iko.
Uko tu bado in the area?
In a bunker.
In a bunker. Okay, nice to see you again. And of course, we have Mr. Wanjohi from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Karibu tena sana.
Thank you so much.
I will just, go straight and ask you the same question we've asked the audience. Do we have the minimum requirements to have a sustainable manufacturing industry?
I would look at it from different angles, because for any industrialization to happen, there are various cogs that need to be running to ensure that we are getting there.
Right.
So if you look at the installation of production capacity in the country, we have a lot.
Okay.
But you find that utilization of the same stands at around 50%. The other thing, what is installed capacity, we have tried to move it from what I'd call third industrial revolution to fourth industrial revolution, so that we have technology that is interfaced with human skill, so that the production is standard, production is faster, and many other factors that are considered. So I would say the minimum has been met. It's just a question of having the right support from the government and from the private sector players and even from the citizenry, so that we have the market and growth.
Quality-wise, do you think Kenya can compare against other manufacturers on the continent, rather, such as Nigeria, South Africa? Can we compete on the same level? Because look at I think Ghana is now producing their own vehicles, locally manufactured, 100% Ghanaian cars. Do we have that capacity?
Capacity is there, but you find that every country has its own comparative advantage. We are, as a country, trying to move to high and medium technology through, like now you've talked about automotive sector, whereby now we have automotive policy that has been adopted up to the cabinet level.
Right.
And you look at how we can have, starting with assembling, which is still going on at the moment, but also having some local parts manufacturing, some parts manufacturing through what is called local content policy, or Buy Kenya, Build Kenya policy.
Right.
So that now we move from 20%, because like now Ghana or Morocco, Morocco is at 90%.
Really?
Local content on motor vehicle manufacturing.
Awesome.
They're taking to the US, they're taking even to the Europe. But they have grown over time. They started from 40%, now they are at 90%. It's the same case study that you even have here, whereby now we are moving from a 6% local part manufacturing, and then assembling is 94%, and then over time you move to the 50%, 40%. So, but as far as, because I started with comparative advantage, as far as comparative advantage is concerned, we have to look at the agro-processing in our country. Because Morocco and Ghana, their weather is not the same as the weather that we have here. The soil component and whatnot. So you find that we have a comparative advantage in farming or in agriculture, and then our strength would be in agro-processing.
Okay. Yes. Abraham, for you then, I remember growing up as a student in primary school, we kept on being told that our country's economy rather is agriculture based. We are exporting flowers, we're exporting tea, we're exporting coffee and whatnot. Should we still focus, or rather, is our economy still agricultural based, or has it metamorphosized to something different?
No, our economy remains agriculture based. Because if you look at most of people derive their livelihood, whether true or not, from agriculture. And I love what my colleague has said. I think we, even as we go the industrialization way,
right,
I think we must deal with that which we have comparative advantage over the rest. Personally, I would not bother going into motor vehicles. I don't think a day will come when we'll do better cars than Japan or than Germany. I don't think that day will come.
Really? Even in a couple of what are they called?
Centuries? I think we are better doing better coffee. Better, because see, most of our agricultural products are shipped out in their primary form.
Yes.
So you harvest beans, you dry them, you ship them out. You take tea, you dry it, you ship it out. You take avocados, you clean them up, you put some wax on it, and you ship it out. But you imagine a scenario where, like for example, the avocado, we start doing guacamole, we start doing avocado oil.
Yeah.
So that chain in itself, first of all, will employ a lot of Kenyans. Because don't forget, most of the Kenyans are in those agricultural areas.
Right.
So we will start having cottage industries that will start doing these things at the cottage level. Because now, also with devolution, we have markets right down to the sub-county level. Then look at coffee. Coffee lives here in as a berry, goes somewhere, is packed in a tin, then we buy it back. So why don't those people who put it in a tin, why don't they come and do it? They put the tin here. Pyrethrum, where we produce the largest producer in the world. But we don't have a production plant here. So those are the things, some of the things we need to look at our policy and look at what we have comparative advantage over.
Okay.
And start that as our pedestal. Yes, if we want to do cars, we can do them later. But for now, let's focus on agriculture, because it will do two things.
Yeah.
We will definitely have a better chance of industrializing faster. And number two, the impact in terms of economic development.
Right.
Which is the permeation of economic growth to the citizen.
Let me ask you a question. Are we still the top? Because I remember, again, as a student of business back in the 90s,
yes,
we're told we're the largest tea producers in the world, largest coffee producers in the world, and that's where we used to derive our money, followed by now things such as tourism and so on and so forth. But I feel like right now we've been overtaken by our neighbors. Ethiopia is doing more coffee than us. Tanzania is actually even processing more coffee than us. Is it because there's laxity on our side in terms of developing those particular areas?
You see, first of all, tea, we are the largest exporter of tea. Not the largest producer of tea is India.
Okay.
But they consume 90% of their own tea.
All right.
Kenya, we only consume 10% of our own tea. So that's where the challenge is. But then again, what is the producer price? How much of that price at the auction goes to the farmer? How much of that coffee price, when it gets out there, gets to the farmer?
Right.
An avocado, if you buy it from the farmer, it will be about 10, 15 shillings. 20 if he's very lucky.
Okay.
If you go to the European market, it's 2 to 3 euro.
That's almost 500 bob.
Yeah. So now, what we are saying is, how can we find a mechanism that can transfer at least half of this value,
right,
to the guy who put all that effort, instead of
that is the farmer.
Yes, that is the farmer. But the guy with the shortest end of the stick is the guy who produced it.
Okay.
So we have to disintermediate this process by reducing the number of hands this thing has to touch. People who just add price but don't add value. You see, and reverse that to having more value added and less price put on it.
Mr. Wanjohi, then, that begs me to ask the question in terms of what he said, manufacturing-wise. Look, we're producing coffee, but we're not processing it in our own country. We are producing tea, but it leaves the country and then it comes back as something different, and so on and so forth. Is it because, again, coming back to the same question, do we have the manufacturing capabilities of even our very own, the things that we are the largest producers or even the largest exporters of?
How I would look at it is from the policy perspective, whereby the policies that we have in the country are not in promotion of value addition, they're in promotion of exportation of the raw. And in these, we are borrowing from the system that was introduced to us before independence and shortly after the independence. It is us as a country to sit down and ask ourselves, what do we want for job creation? What do we want for investments? What we want for our own wealth to be retained in the country. It is the policy changes in regulatory environment, in the acts of parliament that are established, if you're talking of the Tea Act and whatnot, so that all these is talking of some policies that are promoting value addition locally. For instance, if you're talking of hides and skins, we have an export levy that has been put of 10%, such that now you cannot export raw it has to be processed internally or locally before we ship out finished shoes, leather jackets and whatnot, and send them to the Americas and whatnot. So it's just a question of looking at our policy environment and ensuring that it is working for us. For instance, as CAM, we have worked on several papers at the think tank level. And we have like tea paper, and we have textile and apparel paper. Now we want to look at macadamia and avocado and whatnot. What we have realized that there are enormous jobs and investments that is lacking in this country because of the policy environment that we're working in.
Okay.
For instance, if you're talking of tea, the figures that are coming out is only 2.7% of tea is exported in value added.
2.7%.
2.7%. The other 97.3% is exported in bulk.
Okay.
And then when it is exported in bulk, we do value addition out there in Europe and in India, in America and whatnot. And then, as my brother was saying, it's only packed in a tin, and then some taste is added and whatnot. Then I buy it fivefold.
Yes.
It's very unfortunate because the fourfold that have lost in the process ought to have been retained in the country. So there are jobs that have been lost, there are investment that have been lost, and that's why I feel like I need to call for all of us to awaken our concerns and see the damage that we're doing into our country by not promoting value addition locally.
Because I was having a conversation with my producer yesterday, and she told me that even our very own some of the oils that we used to cook, we are hitting a snag because there are some components of that particular oil that we do not make here, that we have to manufacture, and since we do not have them, our very own production is failing. Yet we have enough, I believe, sunflower to make sunflower oil. We have enough maize to make corn oil. Yes. We have enough soya to make soya oil, and so on and so forth. Why is it that kama hatuwezi pata, kama tuseme ni component inaitwa component A, kama inatoka India na tunaweza, mbona tusitengeneze hapa? That's my question. Why is it? Because we lack the capacity, or is it down to policy, like you mentioned? Again,
I get back to policy.
Right.
And if you're talking of appreciation or increasing or improving this sector that we talked about, if you're talking of vegetable oil,
right?
These are areas that we can exploit. At the moment, like in edible oil, there's high concentration on palm oil, of which you'll find that that palm oil is not locally available. But you find that amongst the consumers, the buyers, probably that's where the demand is.
Yes.
But if we can improve on our value chains on comparative advantage, especially on those plants that give this oil, and then ensure that the value chains are integrated, because even our manufacturers are willing to support backward and forward integration of this.
Okay.
So now over time, because now we are discussing economic recovery and nascent and emerging opportunities that have come up,
right,
we can look at how then some of these opportunities, like now in vegetable oil, can be exploited over time. And then over time you will see there is import substitution from importation of the crude oil to local production of the same.
Okay.
But this is not to call for abrupt sledgehammer approach on the same, because if you just put like an importation levy on now the palm oil or the crude oil, you'll find that there will be business disruption. So we need to do it gradually. If we are doing 100% of this, let's encourage through policy value chain integration locally, and then over time this can be reduced so that our import substitution can work more effectively.
A lot of businesses went down during COVID-19 because of, again, like we mentioned, manufacturing industry couldn't probably meet the demands within the country, because again export and import services were put to a halt at one point, and people suffer because they could not import their mitumbas and they could not import some of the machinery or equipment they needed to run their businesses. Then did we as a country see the opportunities that we can actually take advantage of in terms of the economy?
I think it's a wake-up call for us that the more you depend on other economies to deliver for you, the more vulnerable you become to them. So, and what is sad, some of the things we depend others to produce for us are things we can produce here.
Such as?
such as toothpicks. You see?
Really?
Yes, we do import.
We import toothpicks.
We import anything. Because we've reached a point where, yes, and you see, it's
Very sad.
there are two issues here. There's the businessman who has put in his money for a return. So he looks at each of its costs. So he looks at, like, for example, if he wants the toothpicks, they're probably here locally and they're imported. The imported one is probably cheaper because of other factors. And that's where now the policy comes in. As a government, what do we want to achieve? Do you want to achieve dependency? Or do you want to achieve a situation whereby we encourage local manufacturing? Initially, it may not be as efficient. But as policies driven towards more of consumption of the local,
Right.
first of all, we develop a taste for our own products. And number two, over time, we start cutting the average cost of production.
Okay.
So eventually, we're even able to compete with the guy who used to eat all our lunch.
Yeah.
But previously, what used to happen, we had a very cheap model. If I want something, I import it from a country we all know from.
Yeah.
It comes in. But now COVID happened. Then we couldn't. So we realized our production process is held ransom.
Yes.
By factors that are beyond our control.
Okay.
So it's a time now to decide. This buy Kenyan we talk about, buy Kenya, produce Kenya, buy Kenya. Maybe it's high time we did it and did it properly.
Okay.
Because I think there are very few things that we cannot produce here, especially for things that you and I use all the time, including apparel.
We'll get to textile industry.
When I was growing up, we used to live in apparel. So when you look at these things, but starting from basic things like agriculture, because that really pains me, that up to today, we're still shipping coffee beans for us to receive them back in a tin.
And they're just put a flavor kanakuwa expensive.
And you paid for 5 times.
Ngoja kidogo. There's a WhatsApp message as we take the question of the day. Keep sending your WhatsApp messages. Does Kenya meet the minimum quality standards to drive a sustainable manufacturing industry? Does Kenya meet the minimum quality standards to drive a sustainable manufacturing industry? If you're a businessman and you're in the export and import business, tell us, what are some of the things you import and you think, tunazitengenezea hapa hivi hata kani River Road? Okay, let's take a look at our WhatsApp message. Good morning. Watching the show from Ruaka. My question is, why has it been so hard for the government to formulate policies and develop infrastructure for value addition for coffee, tea, pyrethrum, and etc. since independence? Thank you very much, Brax. All right, let's take a phone call as well. Nani ako kwenye simu? Hello, K24. K24, hello?
Yes, K24. We paid for KRA in June. And we were told to repay again in July. What is happening? Is that an encouragement or a discouragement?
Okay.
Yeah, they said that it did not reflect. Why?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about taxation, especially when there's some kind of double taxation going on. But we'll get to that in a second. Wanjohi, there's something that Abraham has mentioned in regards to textile industry. I know that even getting our own branded T-shirts that are branded, whether it's Kenya Rugby or Harambee Stars or some, some interesting something that we can, emulate as part of our heritage, is actually quite expensive. You shouldn't be buying a jersey for say 1,500 shillings, yet some random jersey from abroad, I can get it for as little as even 500 bob, and it's quality and it's legit. What is happening when it comes to that particular situation? I
want to throw a spanner in the works and try to expound further on what is happening in our competitiveness space. Because without driving competitiveness of the manufacturing sector or any private enterprise, not only even the private enterprise, even the government processes, competitiveness has to be invoked. You will see that along the supply and value chain process, there are various cost implications, inefficiencies, and whatnot that normally come up.
Okay.
There is a value chain process we call inbound process, outbound process, and then in-factory process, whereby inbound process is when you are bringing the raw materials, the intermediate products, the machineries, the human capital, and whatnot. You realize that there are various inefficiencies that normally come up there.
Okay.
For instance, if you're talking of when you're importing the raw materials and intermediate products through the port, like now the port of Mombasa, The demurrage cost and the storage cost that we have to pay so that we finance government processes are huge. 40% of the consignment that have to pass through that port, they have to pay these expenses because they normally exceed the free period that is given, that if you clear your goods within 4 days, you will not pay demurrage and storage cost.
Okay.
But this one we have to pay 40%. Of containers are the only one that do not pay. Indeed, I have to correct that. 40%, 60% they have to pay.
Okay.
If you look again at, for instance, the in-factory processes, if you look at the cost of power, if I would give a comparative analysis in the region, in Kenya, the cost of power is offloaded to us at around 0.16 kilowatt per hour.
Okay.
Cents per kilowatt per hour, USD.
Okay.
If you go to Uganda, they're at 0.05, so though is a bit subsidized. If you go to Ethiopia, they're at 0.03. If you go to Egypt, they're at 0.0.
So basically you're saying power in Kenya is very expensive?
Yes, Egypt is 0.05.
Wow.
You go to Tanzania, what is closer to our 0.16,
Ours
which is at
about
0.09.
Ours is 3 times more.
Yes, ours is 3 times more. So however much you try to reduce our margins, because you cannot do a business without making your margins, because that is our sustainability and that's our resilience.
Okay.
You fight that you are being outdone by the international players. So there is huge support that's supposed to really come to the manufacturing sector, so that at least we can overcome this competitiveness challenge in terms of pricing, so that at least when we offload in this globalized market, we are still selling the same. So that's the reason why you're saying, like now in cotton to apparel industry, that is textile and apparel, you find that what is locally manufactured sometimes is expensive, but because the cost of production in the country is so high. If you're talking of outbound processes, if my factories are based in Nairobi, and I want to transport my goods to Kisumu, please count for me how many counties are in between Nairobi and Kisumu.
About 4.
Do you know that in those 4, not even 4, they're about 6.
Yeah.
Do you know in those 6 counties, when you are crossing from one to the other, you have to pay multiple fees and charges.
Yes.
Rather than having one that is harmonized across the board. So you find Nairobi, you pay 3,000 per truck. You cross to Nakuru, you pay another one. You go to Kericho, I don't know,
another
you pay another. Yes,
cost.
before you get to Kisumu, your competitiveness is done. So you're looking at some of these factors that need to be addressed, so that at least the competitiveness of what is locally manufactured good can be better than it is today.
I want us to take a short break, but before we do that, let's check out one message on WhatsApp so we can ponder on it and come and answer it raka. Thanks for the session, gentlemen. My point of concern is the government. Is the government encouraging local production? Well, Mr. Wanjoy is actually addressing that. The taxes are too high, and if I was to produce a product, it will cost more than the imported goods. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. Let's take that short break. Then when we return, we address some of those taxation problems. Wanjoy has actually mentioned that even transporting your goods from Kisumu to Nairobi alone, 6 counties, all of them charge you for that one product. By the time it gets to Nairobi, it costs 6 times as much. Let's take that short break. We'll be right back.